Well, thank you everyone. Welcome to our webinar on co-managed tools. We're really going to be reviewing today. CIO Solutions has done a lot of work either switching out tools or adding to our offerings. So this is going to serve as sort of a 101 survey of some of the things we've added. And from that, we can either have more in-depth one-on-one conversations on any one tool, or if there's interest, email myself, and we can actually do another webinar going in any one of these topics in greater detail. We're going to talk about some of the reasons why we changed our tools, what are the thought rationale in our head of how we select tools, and then just give a cursory overview of some of them. On the call with us, I've got Jeff Franklin, who's a VCIO, Rex Cooper, who's in support department and really heading up a few of the initiatives with some of these tools, and Jamie Sharon and marketing here. So thank you, Jamie, for getting this all set up. Yeah, we'll just talk a little bit, some of the challenges with our old tools as CIO saw it. We kind of have a matrix that gives an overview, talk about some of the principles and features, and then demos and screenshots where available. And we've got a diverse group of people from different technical backgrounds, so feel free to chime in at any point with questions and let us know to slow down, speed up, or go in more in depth in any one of these topics. So some of the ways we saw limitations with our previous tool stack, we had a RMM called Kaseya, and we felt that architecture was really limiting from adding modern security features and modern kind of work from home features, which we'll get into. But it fundamentally had a software architecture that in our view didn't allow it to add the right features at the speed we needed to. So we felt it was just a really limiting. It's a architecture that was created 20 years ago and really wasn't advancing in the feature sets we thought were important in the new world. For customer environments, discovering non-Windows or Mac devices was absent. So how do we make sure we know about every firewall, every switch, every device with an IP? All that was kind of manual. So we wanted ways to automatically discover that. And getting them into our documentation system was again manual and somewhat inconvenient. We've heard over the years that our portal to communicate with us for ticketing process and even customizing for customers themselves was fairly ineffective and room for improvement. And so we'll talk about that in the portal that we put in that helps customers. As customers have sites without servers, more and more, the ability to monitor and manage those sites were kind of limited. We would either have to put in our own Windows server just for it, which kind of stunk. So we call those jump boxes. So our ability to monitor and manage sites without servers was fairly limited. Getting topology views of the network, which is kind of how everything's connected, if you will. This switch connects to that switch, connects to that access point or that printer. It was hard. It was all done manual documentation. So those views were not easy to create. And this concept of per process and per user data was limited. And we'll talk through all those and give some examples. All right. So before we get into that, some of the monitoring principles on the tool selection is we tend to be a best of breed shop, and we like solutions that are geared for mid-market and enterprise that can port down to the SMB at the price level. But we really want the best tools. We kind of take the approach, if I was an employee of CIO Solutions, what tools would I want to be working and doing my job? So we really try to pick what we believe is the best. We want to make sure that the software we pick, if customers want access to the same tools, that we can give them access. And that's really with our mission to help co-manage customers that have some level of internal IT. We want to be able to provide them access where prudent. We think it's a lot better of a support relationship when we're seeing the same things, have the same language. And then we always look at, can we get at least 7 years out of this tool? What is the architecture? What is their vision for what they're creating? And we want future capabilities out of them, even if it's not solving for what we need to solve today. So that's sort of the general way we look at software and tools when we're evaluating best of breed, co-managed access, and do they have the right vision that we can grow with? So this is our matrix. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but with the monitoring and management, we switched to a Domots platform combined with ControlUp. We created a IT portal using Cloud Radial, which we'll be actually doing a demo of. We have always had ConnectWise and BrightGauge for ticketing system and business analytics. We added Adlumin XDR SIM for high security, high compliance customers. So that's an enhancement on security offerings that typically is used by high compliance customers, but we're seeing more and more as insurance companies require it. So we think that's going to be important for customers in the coming years that aren't high compliance. And we added a licensing procurement with Pax8, which has a 365 storefront where we can now allow our customers that want access to the Microsoft licensing ways to kind of co-manage it. So a lot on this matrix, a lot added, a lot of work in the back end over this past year. So kind of new monitoring principles on the monitoring side, especially with Domots. We now have these little pretty cost-effective boxes. They're around $100 that we put out on every customer site. So we used to monitor things through the VPN and have to have Windows agents installed on servers. We can still install it on a Windows server if the customer has it, but if they don't, we've got these little boxes. And so every site with an internet service provider gets one, and it gives us a lot more visibility into everything happening, not just what I would call important devices, but all devices. I'm not going to dive too much into the technical details of this other than we do have these and have been deploying them for the past couple of months. And then ControlUp gets installed now on the operating system, and it goes much, much deeper, which we'll get into on monitoring that operating system. So kind of ControlUp software. This is pretty cool. This is the changes user and process as a first-class citizen. So if you look historically, our monitoring tools might be able to detect the CPU is high, let's say. But the question is, what is using it? And so inevitably, even when it was high, you would still have to log on and spend some time looking around to see, what process it was, or if it was like a remote desktop or Citrix server, what user. Our new tool really has user and processes as a first-class citizen. So you could see here we've got the user, we've got the and what that user 196 processes are doing. And you can see there's 3 users on this box. One is active, one is not. So this is kind of this user concept. In addition, once we go into a user, we actually can see the process. So this breaks it up, Google Drive, FS, CPU, memory, network for each process. And not only do we have that in the real time, we also have historical. So the classic example that we used to get was, hey, my computer was slow yesterday. What was it? Well, the prior monitoring tools couldn't allow us to get a better answer on that. We now can say, yeah, we saw it was slow and it was this process because, and get a little more detailed information and answer that question a little thoroughly, maybe even solve it without having to see it happen again. That's always the hope.
And a lot of our apps are shifting to cloud-based as well. And so we'll get a complaint from a customer that my computer was slow. And historically, when everything was on site, that's usually like CPU or RAM, something is using a lot of resources. But now, as a lot of things have moved to the cloud, it could be Wi-Fi signal strength. It could be an issue with connectivity. It could be a bunch of other brief interruptions that make it appear to the end user as slow, especially as people have gone to work from home. Now we're trying to diagnose Wi-Fi on people's home office networks. It's just so the historical data is really useful for that, and it helps us see all of those things.
Yeah, and I got some good examples, Jeff, slides coming up to show that too. The other piece with ControlUp, what we really like is they've got a strong vision that the user becomes the first-class citizen. So this is just an example of Eric Egolf. I've got a good user experience score. I have 2 computers, 5 different applications, one unified communication, which is Zoom that's active. But this concept of the user, and that user may have more than one device, is really important in the architecture of most other tools are really device centric. It might have a field that says what users logged in, but they're not related. And in reality, we do see them as related. So this concept of identity being built in the software is important now, and is more, as Jeff said, the more and more we're doing cloud services, this is becoming more important. So we wanted to go with a solution that really understood that user identity integrated to the devices was really important. this really speaks to what Jeff was talking about. This is on a workstation that I have. We can quickly see, oh, this is a Cox Communication ISP. Oh, they're using wireless. These are the adapter. This is the Wi-Fi SSID they're connected to. So there's these little things that in a work from home environment are even more important than a corporate environment where everything was a little more controlled. And as you look in here, we're looking at network latency, we're measuring it, seeing if it's bad. Here's a blip that I had, and that did, was an experience that was starting to get up there, but it's not consistent. So getting these stats on workstations was probably important pre-work from home, but not as important. Now it's critical. And again, here's an example of Wi-Fi signal strength over time. So when users have that call, hey, it was slow yesterday, we got some good data, not just for real time, but historically answering those type of questions. The way that the industry is going, it's moved from just patching operating systems to trying to patch applications. And this is actually really hard to do automatically because the way these software programs are written, they change how they update all the time. And so this program really takes an approach of, there's this thing called a CVE, which is basically a known security vulnerability, and it looks for them in all of the software and starts giving us not just operating system, which would be the classic way to patch, but also apps and SaaS apps as well. So it really supports this architecture of increasing ability to handle more security requests, especially for higher compliance, is important. So this is a good example of what's happening on the workstation. Zoom is the update. You're in the latest version of Zoom, and we really don't care if it's the latest version anymore. It used to be we always wanted to update always, but that's problematic. We actually only really want to update most of this software if there's a security vulnerability, or if the software forces you to auto update just because of versioning. But we don't want to update everything always. We want to update everything that's prudent for either functionality needs or security. That creates, I think, the most stability on the workstation side. Domots. This is just a quick. This is the monitoring box that I was talking about. It goes on site, and it inherently gives us kind of monitoring of a site. This is an example of this customer has 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 sites. One of them is down. Really quick and easy to see. We can dive in and get more detail, but this concept of everything with an ISP has a box on it, and that box is set up to auto discover kind of everything happening, so we're not blind to what's happening on the network. Again, high compliance customers are actually sometimes have a requirement, anything new on the network, I need to be notified and make sure it's legit. This can help with that requirement as well. And this is kind of this topology view where it automatically builds relationships. Here's the internet. Oh, we have this firewall. It goes to kind of a switch that's distributing to everything, to other switches, etc. So it builds this automatically, which used to have to be hand drawn and updated, which is pretty cool feature for understanding things. And if one of our on-site guys, in practical terms, hey, we're having problems with this printer, we can really quickly see which switch it's plugged into, and if we do need to go on site, it's just a lot quicker to diagnose and figure out what's happening and where the problem may be when you have that link. This one I'm not going to go into too much, but it can automatically create our devices and our other documentation systems. It also allows us to be a jump box. This is more for the text, but you can, web or SSH or from Domots to any other device, avoiding needing to remotely log in via normal session. And our technicians really like this. This is a little less interesting for those not in the tech space, but we've moved to centralize all of our alerts to one platform called xMatters. Really, as time goes on, it seems like we're needing to get more and more information about what's happening in customer environments, whether it's security, performance related, or informational. So we moved to this centralized platform, and now we can mix and match or add things pretty easily and start triaging and seeing what's happening. So, right now, these are some of the the information that our systems send about what's happening on the network. And this tool is great. It can accept webhooks, emails, and other sort of anything basically that a system will send. It'll accept it and allow us to triage it. Okay. Before I get into the Cloud Radial demo, which I'll hand over to Rex, this is a new concept for many. It's classically called a SIM, although the industry has rebranded this XDR. But it's really an advanced security system. And if you think of every device that's in your environment has some sort of telemetry data about what's happening on it. It's collecting all that data in a centralized place, typically storing it for a year for compliance reasons, and it can detect things across various systems and alert you on it, and even take more advanced remediation actions if needed. And I'll give a real concrete example in a second. But this is being required for most high compliance customers. And again, I think the insurance companies are starting to ask these questions and give you better deals on cyber if you have XDR SIM. So this is just a real example internally. Sam Goodman, some of you guys may know Sam. It detected that he was in an unusual location from the Office 365 events that this thing is monitoring. And it looked up the IP address. It told us that it's owned by Bell Canada. By the way, without this, we would be doing this manually. We'd be getting the alert, looking at the IP, trying to find out where it is. It knows what activities he's done, mail items, sending emails, starting a team session. It actually looked and found out that multi-factor access is enabled for this account, which reduces some of the risk. It tells us his last password change, right? Again, these are the things we would normally have to do in the background. And if we had wanted to, we could have automatically disabled his account until we had figured out whether this suspicious activity was legit or not. So this is part of the automated remediation action. So if something suspicious happens at midnight, you do not want to wait for someone to get out of bed or contact us. You want to actually disable the account immediately. So we have those type of options with this. And again, taking the events, diving into them, and summarizing pretty quickly what's happening. This is the concept of XDR and SIM. And next tool before we get into questions is Cloud Radial, and I'll let Rex take this over, but this is a custom portal. I'll stop sharing, Rex.
Perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Yeah, so the idea behind Cloud Radial is we basically wanted to build a sort of centralized portal for all of our systems. We have all of these different tools, Microsoft 365 being one of them. We want to sort of integrate all of these different platforms into one centralized portal that we can then offer to all of our clients to kind of give that full transparency that is part of our CIO brand. The portal here can be fully customized to your business and what you need. We have a few clients that were full on turning this portal into an intranet of sorts. But for the sake of this video today, I just want to kind of cover some of the features that it offers. The ability to quickly log into the portal. It is Microsoft 365 integrated, meaning no need for an extra password. You're already logged into Microsoft. You can single sign on. Your users love it. You love it. It's easy to lock down your portal and moving to a complete modern office environment. The ability to quickly submit a ticket from the portal. When you go here, we can build out custom categories. You can custom tailor these forms to exactly what your business needs. If you have HR requirements, if you have specific tickets that are, like I said, detailed to your organization, we can build that out to quickly remediate a ticket and gather all that information up front rather than having to go back and forth with the end user. Service requests, as I mentioned, we can get pretty tailored. You can build it around your HR department. You can build these super easy and interactive forms together. As I mentioned, all that information up front prevents that back and forth conversation. Ticket updates, the ability to quickly see every single ticket that you ever submitted into CIO. You can see from all time, when you click on a ticket, you have the ability to see all the notes. You can reply to the ticket. And one of my favorite parts is going into the timeline. You can see exactly when the ticket was created, the work that your technician is doing. And then by going to the details tab, You can quickly see who the ticket is assigned to, who the contact. Here's what board it's on, who's working on it.
Rex, and this historically we have been able to give our customers access, but it was through our system natively, which had a lot to be desired. It was a separate username and password, and it's really just a clumsy interface. And they,
Right.
for years they've been saying they're going to make it better, but they really showed no signs of doing it. So this is providing our customers access and visibility that we wish the native solution we used to use had.
Right. And this is this could be for all users at a company, not just for the internal IT or administrative staff that are handling the IT services with CIO, right? So an end user logs in, they see just their tickets, but an IT point of contact or an internal IT person would log in and they would see all tickets for the entire company or whatever their permissions allowed.
Thanks, that.
Totally. Yeah. And then building further on that, the ability to quickly build out reports, ticket count by month. You can quickly report on all of your tickets submitted into CIO. You can break it down by user. So the ability to quickly, provide this information and give that transparency that CIO likes to provide. Support being one of them. We have a built-in library of training courses at your disposal. We have partnered with a company called Bigger Brains to offer these really sweet tailored 365 custom training scenarios. This is available to all users. They can quickly log into this university, see the course, click on the course, and enroll. And now they have a super interactive training experience for that Microsoft lesson. I did want to mention that this university can be custom built to your organization. So if your HR department requires a sexual harassment training that is completed by everyone, you can quickly upload that, custom build it to your organization, make it required. Now you have a centralized portal that is Microsoft 365 integrated. Your users can log in, very quickly take the course, and you can track their progress real time. Microsoft 365 updates and status. This is a very nice use case because Microsoft is moving away from the public-facing view of a lot of this information. You have to get logged into the admin center to see the status updates. So to be able to quickly log into, as mentioned, going back to that centralized portal and see all this info is very crucial in our opinion. Compliance, alerting, infrastructure. You can see everything related to your domains, including expiration dates, DNS records. We're trying to pull as much info into this portal as possible. And we do have the ability to do some custom stuff to your organization as well. So I think that's rounding up. You have the ability to see all of your CIO account information, including agreements, any invoices that were presented, any quotes that presented. So we can make custom roles, such as your accounting department needs a login. They can log into the portal and only they have access to see the account tab. So it makes it very easy to build this portal custom to your organization.
Cool.
Thanks, Rex.
Thanks, Rex.
Yeah, one thing that's really cool about that portal, we have a customer that uses CAD as a part of their, their normal business. And Rex was actually able to find a library of CAD trainings for them as well. So there are some things, if you use a specific line of business application, we might be able to get some custom trainings for your line of business that can be scheduled to new hires as well.
So that kind of concludes the survey of new monitoring tools that we put in, the new security tools, new portal. Again, we're happy to do a more in-depth webinar on any one of those, or even one-on-one conversations to see if there's a fit. But I think you guys have a good idea of where we were and where we're going with some of these tools. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions. All right. Well,
none so far.
None so far. There will be an optional survey when the webinar ends. You can request another webinar or request a meeting. And so if anyone's interested, you could fill that out.
Yeah, and if you have any interest in any of these, like the portal and or maybe you don't have access to something like ControlUp or Domots, reach out to your VCIO and we can get you to the right person, whether it's Rex or Josh or somebody else internally to do the training and get you access and work with you on it.
So we got one question here. Oh, Alexa. Alexa, did you ask to talk?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, it's not Alexa, it's Rebecca Hudson. Alexa
Oh.
shared the meeting invite with me, and so I think I'm appearing as her. I guess in particular, I hopped on kind of late, but I caught in the last presentation in your portal that what I'm interested in is endpoint management tool, which one of those featured. I think there was one subcategory that really dives into that topic. Is that something that we could perhaps just have a separate demo on
100%.
specifically? Because
Yeah.
that's kind of where it all kind of happens, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We divided up into two different use cases. So we actually have two different tools. We have Screen Connect, which we didn't really talk about today because that wasn't a change. Screen Connect is what we use for remote assistance, meaning like somebody calls you, you need to connect to them, you hop into that tool, it shares their screen. You can control their mouse keyboard, you can look over their shoulder and help and assist them. And then it blanks the screen, tells them you're connected, all of that stuff, so you don't have to worry about all of that. And then the other piece is ControlUp, and ControlUp has the ability to do some of that remote assistance stuff, but it's not quite as clean and seamless as Screen Connect is. But really what we're using ControlUp for is monitoring of processes and application installations and reporting, and then also for management of vulnerabilities and patching and just making sure that the systems are up to date. So there's really two parts. We have both agents on all systems that we manage. So there's like 11,000 endpoints that we manage that have both of those tools on it. But yeah, a lot of our co-managed staff have access to those tools. We could totally do a one-on-one training with you, show you how it works, and get you access to it if you need it.
That would be great. And any existing documentation you have, that would be great as well.
Cool.
So we've got a question from Ken. Is CIO Solutions taking on more of a SOC role with XDR and SIEM?
Yes. Yep, Ken, that's what we've been building. We've been building more of a SOC as we get more and more security alerts, and the triaging really follows a different sort of logical path than maybe a performance alert. So yeah, we're absolutely taking on more and more of that role. We are leaning on our vendor for more of the heavy lifting. So if we need to get really deep, it's a collaborative relationship. But yeah, we plan on building that out more and more. And Ken, we're also, I think I've got a meeting scheduled or about to be scheduled with you, me, and Joe. We've actually been building out a compliance as a service offering that's taking a separate sort of branch of the company to help with policy creation and compliance, and creating our own, for CMMC, we're creating our own, I know this is acronym jargon, but our own shared responsibility matrix, or CRM, as well, that we'll be able to share with customers. So yep, we're being pushed in that direction by the industry. And happy to Ken to go into detail with you personally when we meet, I think with Joe sometime soon, about what we've been building as it relates to SOC and compliance.
Well, I don't see anything else.
Yeah, I think we'll call that.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for attending and joining, and yep, have a good rest of the day.